Mythical West Africa. We black out to realize dreams.
Kola, am I not a reasonable man? Faye asked. Yes, Oga. Kola said. Why are you shaking now? You will make people think I'm unreasonable. Faye said with a strong tone, gesticulating with his hands and eyes. No, I'm not shaking, Kola said, trying to keep his composure. Do I not look reasonable? Faye turned to his gang. Over reasonable is worrying you, Shapara shouted. Too much, the rest chorused. Now, Kola, you came to us with your problems, and as businessmen, we listened. We gave your farm a platform to grow, and all we asked for was a token. Small thing, oh. We are not greedy. If you ask me for palm wine now, I will give you because I'm not greedy, Faye said. Oga, not the palm wine, Shapara said softly. Oh, you talk too much. Farabale Jekin Soro. Translation, calm down, let me talk. Faye shouted, turning to Shapara with disgust on his face. Twale, Shapara said, hailing him. As I was saying before I was rudely interrupted, Kola, don't be like that man. Don't interrupt me, Faye said. Yes, Ogami, Kola responded. Biola remained seated on the wagon laughing. We gave your farm a platform to grow, and now you don't want to keep your end of the bargain. Do you know what I hate most? Faye asked. Answer me now. Oh, I don't like it when I'm talking, and there's no response, Faye said angrily. Sorry, Oga, what do you hate? Kola quickly asked. I will light you, Faye yelled. Sorry, Oga, Kola said, with sweat dripping from his forehead. Dami watched the situation calmly. Calm down, Oga, forgive him, his men chorused. Okay, I'm calm, because I'm a reasonable man, Faye said, taking a deep breath and appearing to be calm. I hate cheaters, and do you know what I do to cheaters? Faye asked again. Please, I beg you, give me more time. I will come up with your goods, Kola begged with his palms tightened. Oh, Olodumare, you are ignoring my questions again, Faye said. What, Oga? Kola asked with tears almost rolling down his eyes. I burned them, Kola said, opening his eyes in a dramatic fashion. Jekomo. Translation, let them know. Skibo, one of his men yelled. Kola's crowd of workers began to panic. What is the problem? Dami asked, now standing beside Kola. Who is this one? Shapara said in a rude manner. Who called you into this matter? Skibo added. Okay, you are best in talking, Abi. It will shock you now, Shapara teased. He even carried a sword. Oh, so you have a bodyguard now. You have hired a bodyguard against us. You want to see the unreasonable me, and you will see it, Faye said angrily. No, remain calm, please. He is only my guest. He is an injured traveler, Kola said. Oh yeah, bring that sword, Shapara said as he walked towards Dami and stretched out his hand to collect his sword. Dami batted his hands away and thrust his palm into his chest to push him back. Shapara was thrown a few yards back. Skibo, Secretary, and Omologu took battle stance immediately, ready to charge at Dami. The workers ran for their lives. Stop, leave him for me, Shapara said after lifting himself to his feet. What have you done? Kola said to Dami. Stand back, go to your family. Let me handle this, Dami said to him. Kola remained hesitant. Go, Dami said authoritatively. Kola was about to leave when Faye's voice reverberated in his ears. If you leave that place, Kola, you and your family will cease to exist, Faye said. Carry him inside, Dami said to the woman sobbing on the floor near the injured man. Okay, you want to show yourself, Abi? Shapara said, gesticulating in a taunting manner. He sank his spear into the ground and tapped his head with both palms dramatically to show his madness before grabbing his spear tightly. He dashed his spear forward on the run, aiming to pierce Dami's belly, but he stepped aside to evade his attack while slapping the back of his head with his shielded sword as he ran through. Shapara was dazed by the blow, but he shook it off. He turned around and swung his spear at Dami's head, but he leaned back to evade his attack easily. Shapara added to the momentum of his swing to raise his spear up and swing it vertically from above at the middle of Dami's head. Dami parried his attack and struck his right rib cage in one swing. He followed his attack with a second swing at his left rib cage at lightning speed. Shapara fell to his knees in pain. He dropped his spear and placed his hands on his ribs. He exclaimed in pain. The rest of the gang was shocked. This one has skill, oh, Skibo said. Abi, Shapara is useless, he added.
Shapara grabbed his spear and dashed forward. His pain was evident. I'm just starting, he boasted. He noticed it was dangerous to move close to Dami. His ability to parry and strike in one move and with excellent precision was extraordinary. If he unsheathed his sword, he would have been dead right now. I have no intentions of spilling blood. Leave now and let this farm be, Dami said. This warrior has mind though. Shapara, see the rubbish you are causing, Faye yelled. Don't worry, Oga, I am just warming up, Shapara said boastfully. Shapara put his left leg forward and stamped firmly on the ground. He positioned his spear at the height of his abdomen and pulled his hand back to generate power for his next attack. Dami stood watching him curiously, anticipating what he was going to do from a distance. It was definitely not a throwing position, unless he was trying to use a different technique. Shapara thrust his spear forward at a distance that made it impossible to reach Dami. Suddenly, the spear elongated and shot forward at the speed of a Babalawo's offer. Dami was caught by surprise. He twisted his body sideways to dodge the spear. It grazed his belly, tearing off part of his bandage. The spear retracted immediately. It occurred to Dami that they were not ordinary hoodlums. They were armed with ase-infused weapons. Someone powerful was backing them up. He had a serious look on his face. It shocked you, Abi, Shapara said excitedly. Faye smiled. He and his gang had stepped aside with their horse and wagon to watch the fight. Dami stood beside the gate, determined to prevent anyone from gaining access, while Shapara was a couple of yards away on the path between the maize fields. Kola sat on the floor next to the gate, looking as anxious as he could be. Dami held his sword handle with one hand and his shield with the other. He thought of using its blade, then calmed himself. He didn't need to spill blood. The likes of them should be a walk in the park for him. If he couldn't pass this ordeal without breaking a sweat, he would be below the level he expected of himself. He relaxed his arms. Shapara thrust his spear forward again, this time aiming for Dami's head. Dami was sharper this time around, knowing what to expect. The spear elongated. Dami swerved his head to dodge the attack. Shapara flapped the spear, and like a whip, it turned in the air to wrap itself around Dami's neck. Dami was prepared. He ducked under the attack. Shapara flapped again, and his spear came down on Dami, who rolled out of the way. The spear made a whipping sound as it made impact with the ground, whipping out a chunk of the floor. Dami needed to close the gap between him and his attacker to end the battle. He launched himself forward as he stood, closing a large portion of their distance in one leap. His physical prowess scared Shapara, who kept flapping over and over. Dami jumped over the spear, rolling, swerving, leaning back and forward. All the time he dodged, he kept closing the gap until he was within striking distance. Shapara called back his spear and thrust it at Dami with its normal length. Dami ducked under the attack and drove the top of his sword handle into Shapara's chin, knocking out a few of his teeth. Dami followed his attack with a side swing of his shielded sword into Shapara's throat, using unbelievable speed and agility. Shapara coughed out blood. Dami walked away from him as he fell face flat on the floor. Behind you, Kola said. Dami was shocked. Skibo launched his two daggers at Dami's chin, missing by a strand of hair. Dami managed to lean back just in time to evade the attack. He hadn't heard Skibo move or make a sound. It would take a supernatural ability to be able to creep up on him unnoticed. Then he realized he couldn't even hear his heartbeat. He looked at his hand and saw Oruka Ifion. Translation: a ring of revelation. It made sense. Skibo must be silent as a thief at night. The ring revealed his true ability and amplified it. Kill him, Faye said with a straight face. The rest joined the battle except for Biola Olorino, translation: Queen of Fire, who remained seated on the wagon, enjoying the battle. Dami had piqued her interest, and it made her smile slightly. Secretary dashed towards Dami with his machete in hand. Dami kept evading Skibo's daggers with smooth footwork and sidesteps. Skibo launched his dagger from below, aiming to stab Dami's chin, but Dami evaded by stepping to the side. He used his other hand to drive his dagger towards Dami's ribs as he stepped to the side, but Dami spun his sword to parry his second attack and smash the tip of his sword into Skibo's chin simultaneously. The attack lifted Skibo from the ground, blood spilling from his mouth. Skibo fell backwards to the ground theatrically. Secretary had just arrived within slashing distance of Dami. His machete became engulfed in flames. He swung it to decapitate Dami, but Dami leaned to evade his attack, another ase-infused weapon, he thought. While leaning and stepping away, his shoulder touched the waves left by the swing of Secretary's machete, burning it. Swinging the machete left an invisible scorching wave from the point it was swung to where it stopped. It was a fascinating weapon, Dami thought. Then he realized that he had lost track of Skibo, whose presence he could neither feel nor hear. He turned sharply, and Skibo drove a dagger into his belly. Dami's shielded sword was between the dagger and his belly. It was a narrow escape. He was able to block the attack just in time. Skibo and Secretary jumped out of the way. Omologo threw his hands forward rapidly and continuously from a distance. Glass beads shot out of the glass beads around his wrists. Dami used his shielded sword to parry the beads with fast sideways slashes. The beads shattered as his sword hit them, and the shrapnel scattered everywhere. Some pierced Dami's body. Omologo's glass beads were also ase-infused. Dami rolled out of the way to prevent a fatal injury. He used neat dashes to evade the glass projectiles as they sprang up. "Die! Who are you?" Omologo yelled. Dami rolled on the floor to pick a small stone while evading Omologo's beads. Kola struggled to conceal his body behind the gate. A few broken beads pierced his legs. Dami threw the stone he picked up in the air and, with a powerful swing of his sword, shot it straight at Omologo's forehead. Omologo flew off his feet in shock and fell unconscious. "Oloshi," translation stupid person, Skibo yelled at Dami in reaction to his gang members' fall. He lost his composure and charged recklessly. He grabbed both handles of his daggers in a way that their blades protruded under his grip. With confidence in his speed, he breezed right in front of Dami, stabbing his blades towards his neck from both sides with all his strength. Dami swung his sword underneath his attack and battered his daggers away while smoothly turning into him and headbutting him with the back of his head. He released his sword and grabbed Skibo's arms, which were now protruding above Dami's shoulders. He performed a fast and powerful shoulder throw that sent Skibo's back hard into the ground. "Yay!" Skibo yelled in pain. Dami grabbed his sword before it hit the ground and drove its tilt into the side of Skibo's neck to knock him unconscious. Secretary was paralyzed by fear. Faye slapped the back of his head. "Yay," he said in pain. "Go and finish him," Faye said angrily. Secretary bounced around as if he were trying to summon courage. He let out a battle cry and charged at the calm and composed Dami with his machete raised above his head. He swung his machete vertically from above, but Dami evaded it with a nonchalant sidestep. He was wary of the invisible scorching waves formed by the sword. Secretary began to swing his sword uncontrollably at all angles. Dami maintained his composure while stepping aside to evade his swings. Secretary thrust his sword forward, aiming to impale Dami, who swerved his body to the side. He drove the tip of his sword handle into Secretary's protruding hand from below. Secretary's machete flew into the air. Dami smashed him across the cheeks with his sheathed sword before catching his flying machete. As Dami grabbed the machete, the scorching waves became visible. They were like spider webs. Dami kicked Secretary's chest to plunge him into the waves. He screamed in agony while rolling on the floor. His body was covered with scorching marks. "Interesting," Dami said. He figured the waves were not only visible to the wielder of the machete but were harmless as well. Dami struck the machete into the ground and turned to Faye. "It seems your men have had enough," he said. Faye's face was swollen with anger. "Do you think of yourself as some kind of special warrior for beating these fools?" Faye said, frowning as much as he could. "If the shoe fits," Dami responded. "Ah!" Faye yelled to let out some steam. Faye drank palm wine from his gorge ferociously and spat fire from his mouth. The fire intensely and continuously projected from his mouth with high pressure. Dami jumped out of the way. Kola's gate went ablaze, and Kola barely escaping the flames. Faye directed the fire towards Dami at a rapid pace. Dami rolled on the ground and lifted himself smoothly, dashing forward as his feet touched the ground. The flame caught Kola's crops. He had to end the battle quickly or the destruction would be great, Dami thought. The fire stopped abruptly, as if Faye was out of fuel. He quickly raised his bowl to pour more palm wine into his mouth. Dami saw it as an opportunity to attack. He closed the gap between them with one forward lunge. As he sought to strike with his sword, Faye caught his drinking shot and spat fire at close range. This time, he narrowed his lips to make the fire more concentrated. It shot out like a laser. Dami ducked before he was incinerated. Faye swung his head around to create a slashing effect. The fire laser cleanly sliced a large portion of Kola's mace in half and they were engulfed in blue flames. Dami thrust the handle of his sword into Faye's chin to force his mouth shut. He seamlessly turned to strike his cheek hard with the back of the other arm. Faye was on his way to the ground, but he planted his foot firmly to keep his balance. He was a bulky man and wasn't going down easily. Faye swung his large fist with great strength at Dami's head, but he ducked again, sliding his foot into Faye's ankle as he dodged, sending him falling to the ground. He used the momentum of his fall to throw Faye over his shoulder. His large frame crashed into the ground. Faye gasped for air in pain. Dami followed with a powerful swing of his sword into Faye's face. Blood splashed on the floor. Faye was unconscious for a few seconds. Dami turned his attention to Biola, who sat on the wagon at a safe distance. She smiled in admiration. Faye forced himself up with shaky legs. Dami turned his face towards him nonchalantly. "Have you not had enough?" he said to the big man, but he noticed the determination in his eyes. That's why he was different from the rest and the leader of the pack. "That's enough," Biola said. The rest of the gang struggled to lift themselves from the ground. Biola elegantly jumped down from the wagon. "I have not failed yet," Faye said submissively. Dami wondered if he was actually the boss of the pack. He turned his attention towards Biola, who walked towards him with enough sex appeal to bend his iron will. He maintained his composure. She was indeed beautiful and shaped like a Yoruba goddess. The proportion of her bosom complemented the proportion of her curvy hips. She looked mesmerizing in her red komole, which clung smartly to her body. With all that thickness, she still remained slim. "Can't you tell you can't beat him?" she said. She stopped so close to Dami that he could feel her breath. He remained alert, ready to strike if need be, but he sensed no hostility from her. "Look, he is here to unsheath his sword," she said to Faye. "You are child's play to him. Don't you know who he is?" She turned to Faye, who looked dumbfounded. "Balogun Otubu," she said, turning her gaze back to the serious-looking Dami. "What are you doing on such a farm in the middle of nowhere?" she asked Dami. "Where I am is none of your concern," Dami responded. Biola smiled. "You shouldn't be in such company," Dami added. She turned and walked away from him. "My company is none of your concern," she said. "Let's go, boys. We are done here," she said before she mounted the wagon. The men followed her gingerly. "Today is your lucky day," Shakara said to Dami, while massaging his throat in a futile attempt to reduce the pain from the damage he suffered from Dami's attack. They mounted the wagon with Biola and rode away. Biola's eyes remained locked with Dami until they rode out of sight. The men and women of Kola's compound trooped out with buckets of water to quench the fire. The children ran towards Dami, hailing him. "Get back inside," Kola yelled at them, and they complied without hesitation and with a hint of fear. Kola turned to Dami. "What have you done?" he said in a troubled tone. "You seem to be in trouble, so I stepped in," Dami responded. "I had it under control. I could have handled it diplomatically, and now there is no hope of that," Kola said in an agitated tone. "It didn't look that way. They were poised to harm you and your people. There was a man in a pool of his own blood. Don't think reasoning would have worked," Dami explained. "I welcomed you into my home, and you condemned us all to death," Kola said. "What do you mean? No one should take advantage of honest working men in these lands. The Awujale will be made aware of this," Dami said in a strong tone of justice. Kola laughed softly.
It is obvious you don't know what goes on in these lands. You talk like an outsider, Kola said with a raised voice. Why are you so scared? Dami asked. They are not to be messed with, Kola said. They hold no power over these lands. Do not let yourself be consumed by fear of miscreants, Dami said. He was beginning to get irritated with Kola's attitude. Talking from way above us. You don't know what happens beneath you, Kola said, looking Dami in the eyes. So what now? You run along on your quest and leave us here to suffer their wrath when they return? You are merely a passerby. You had no right to meddle in the affairs of these lands, Kola protested. What affairs, Kola? What affairs? They did mention that you made a deal with them, so tell me, Dami said. It's none of your concern. You have done enough, Kola said, turning away from him. Dami became annoyed. He turned him around and grabbed his barrier at his chest. Your wife and children are in danger. You put them at risk with this business of yours, so tell me, what is it? Dami said firmly. Kola felt ashamed. He yanked himself from Dami's grasp and sighed. It's not like I had a choice. For some years now, things have not been as they used to be. I come from a line of successful farmers. We work hard, harvest, and reap the fruits of our labor, but that is no longer the case. Hard work guarantees nothing these days ever since Egbe Ase-infused translation, Association of Ashe Tool Crafters, took over the markets, he narrated. Took over the markets how? Dami asked. They introduced ase-infused tools and cutlasses for cultivation, making farming easier and faster with less labor. But it is not just that. The quality of produce from these tools is far better than what we grow normally. So they did far better in the market, and customers stopped buying regular fruits from market men and women who purchased from farmers like me. It made life difficult, Kola explained. I don't see the crime in that, Dami said. Yes, at first, but they gave their tools to a certain set of farmers and set a ridiculous price for the rest. When their select farmers took over the market, other farmers went to the association's accredited sellers to cut a deal. The associations asked for a portion of their profits and stocks. They had no choice but to accept because they no longer had any business and their stock went to waste. We reported them to the Awujale, but there was nothing he could do. He claimed crafting Ashe tools took a lot of skill and he couldn't regulate how much they chose to sell them, Kola narrated. The Igbimo Ifa has no interest in commercial gains, only the progress of the Ifa religion and practice, so they are not invested in producing everyday Ashe tools. Egbe Ase controls that sector. It was a rip-off to me, so I chose not to go along with it. After a little while, I could barely feed my family or pay my workers. My brother was doing so much better, and I was looking like a failure in a family with a long lineage of great farmers. So I had to reason with the association and cut a deal. After a long debate, we came to a compromise. I didn't need their Ashe tools because my workers are family to me and I want them to remain part of my farm. So they offered to buy my harvest and generate business for me while I also gave them part of it as their cut. It was a sham in the end. They dictated how much they bought my goods because I had no option and still took part of my harvest for themselves. I am here to deliver their share of my harvest this time around because the money from the ones I sold to them is barely enough to feed my family and replenish my stock, Kola narrated. So the association sent those miscreants to collect, Dami deduced. Yes, but they do not work under the association directly. The association would never openly affiliate themselves with them. But those who do business with the association know they are its enforcers. They call themselves Imule Eje, translation, blood covenant. They have two factions, Apa Otun, translation, right hand, and Apa Osi, translation, left hand. They are usually at loggerheads with each other, but they are used by the association and its affiliates to do their dirty work. The ones that came today are Apa Otun. They enforce the association's businesses around here, Kola explained. I will take this matter to the Awujale personally. For now, I shall be on my way, but fear not, I will return before the end of the day. I will stay with your family for a few weeks while I send word to the Awujale to offer you protection before the issue is resolved, Dami said in an assuring tone. I cannot refuse your help with my current predicament. I do not know whether the Awujale would be of any help, but I trust you well enough now. Forgive my ungrateful behavior earlier. Thank you for saving my family and my workers, Kola said.
Dami whistled, and his horse galloped from the stable to the front of the gate where he stood. Farewell for now, Dami said before riding off. To be continued.